This is Live Life Love. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Or maybe I should just say welcome because the first 2 episodes didn't really count. But today we are talking about internet literacy. Now, this is going to be pretty straightforward. I'm not going to be getting super into the weeds at all. So if you already think that you understand what's going on the internet, then you don't need to listen to this. But if you find yourself getting lost and confused about the stuff that you see on the internet, you can go ahead and listen in. So to start out, you might be like, internet literacy. Why are we talking about internet literacy on a podcast called Live Life Love, all about living a life you love, living your life full of love? And the answer to that question is that it's 2025. Most of us are spending a lot of time on the internet. I also am planning to talk a lot more about interactions on the internet and how, living a life you love and living your life full of love plays into that, because ultimately that is the untouched ground. And so it's important to build a foundation here of what even is information. How do we consume this information? We don't want to be spreading misinformation or feel guilt that we might have spread lies. And ultimately, life is on the internet, so we got to know how this stuff works. So you might be like, what is internet literacy? Well, literacy, hopefully you have heard that word before. It is the ability to read, write, and comprehend written word. So internet literacy, you can kind of just pop the word internet in there. So the ability to read, contribute, and understand information on the internet. And I think there's some additional skills that come there. You need to have basic literacy skills, but you also need to be able to consume information that might be AI generated, or be able to discern what's true, who's lying, how do I share things on the internet. And there are a lot of unreliable narrators on the internet as well. In books, you have unreliable narrators and it plays into the story, but it's a little bit more high stakes on the internet if you're taking things at face value. And there are also a lot of bots, a lot of scams. AI is just getting more and more popular, seeing it more and more. So it's important to just understand how the internet works on a very basic level. And eventually, internet literacy will hopefully be implemented in curriculum in schools if it's not already. If you are a teacher, I recommend teaching a little bit about internet literacy to your kids. But let's start with the part of the internet that I think people are most familiar with or use the most often, and that is Google. Or if you use a different search engine than Google, then whatever you use. I'm going to be specifically talking about Google though. So when you Google, and this might sound super obvious, but I'm just laying it out for everybody, the first thing that shows up are the AI results. Now, sometimes these are awesome, and sometimes they're not so awesome. These AI results are pulling from the websites that you would have probably looked through yourself and kind of do some of that work for you so you don't have to be digging for whatever information you're looking for. Now, the biggest issue here is that you don't actually know what source they're pulling from. So that's where you'll need to do your more due diligence if something doesn't seem quite right based on what it's saying to you. And of course, AI is always limited to what is out there, and it doesn't always perform the best for newer or more complicated topics. And this is just an example of how AI has failed me. I Googled how to hard boil an egg. I just wanted to know how long it needed to boil for. And AI told me that I only needed to add 2 inches of water to the pan, which I found the recipe that actually had that instruction, and it was add 2 inches after you cover the egg in water. And the AI had just missed that step. So that's like a very basic, easy thing that I could tell it was telling me that was not quite right. But you just need to take the information it gives back to you with a grain of salt. But a lot of times these are like very helpful results. They're going to tell you what you want to know right away. The websites that show up after that are usually the sponsored websites. They will say sponsored. I'm sure you have noticed this. And that means that that website paid to show up first in your search. And it's important to know that just because a website says it's a website doesn't mean it's actually that website, especially with sponsored. It's a scam where people will, create a spoof of a common website that a lot of people go to. So they'll create this spoof that looks a lot like that website. They'll pay so it's in the sponsored and it shows up first. And then, when you're entering your personal information, you don't notice that the URL is off. It's not quite the website you were looking for. And now these scammers have your information. So always just check the URL before entering any personal information. And as a rule of thumb, I usually scroll past the sponsored just because the most popular websites will show up after that. And the ones that are getting the most traffic and match your search results the best. So once you get past that sponsored, you can usually find exactly what you're looking for without being influenced by any paid sponsorships. So that's the basics of Google. Hopefully that was somewhat helpful and maybe you learned something. Next, I'm going to talk about reviews. If you've been around a while, you've probably seen reviews. I mean, you definitely have seen reviews. And when you're on the internet, you don't really know who's leaving these reviews, so they can be faked. Or they can be from some weird feud that you don't understand, so good or bad. Reviews are not always the best to look at. Usually 3 or 4 star reviews are where the sweet spot is of where you're going to get the most information about whatever product you're looking at. And it's a good way to check whatever you saw is legit, is to Google it and look at the Google reviews and make sure you actually look at them, not just the rating. Because sometimes they say different things. They're like, this was the worst product I've ever had and it's 5 stars or whatever. So just Google it. And, you see reviews on the actual product's webpage. Can't always trust those. So look a couple different places, get a couple different opinions before buying. It's kind of just my point here. Next, influencers and affiliate marketing. You have probably heard both those terms before. And essentially, influencers are often sent items for free to promote. So when you see them promote things, just keep that in mind. It might not be the best product. And also, just because it works for an influencer does not mean it will work for you. And if you've seen affiliate marketing and everybody's like, oh, this is how you make it rich or whatever with affiliate marketing, it's a lot more complicated than that. And pretty much what affiliate marketing means is that you are promoting a product or something and you're going to have a link and you're going to put that link somewhere. And then when anybody clicks on the link based on your promotion of the item, it means that you earn a commission. And this can be for better or for worse. So if there's an influencer that you really enjoy and helped you decide, I want this item, they gave a great full faceted review of it, then you can go ahead and click that link and give them a little commission for helping you make that informed decision. Now, we want to be making sure that we know the source of whatever information that we're consuming from the internet. And this is kind of, I would say, the real meat of internet literacy is just knowing the source and being able to decide whether that source is realistic and true, or if it's, maybe the truth has been bended a little bit, shaped, sensationalized. I think, especially with TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, we all hear fake news, fake news, fake news, but it's pretty easy. It doesn't have to be super difficult to just check, do a few quick checks, Google anything to see if it's true. That's usually the first step. If you're like, this doesn't seem quite right, just Google it real quick and you can usually find out right away if it's known misinformation or not. Also, you should make sure that it's the original source. So if it's an account and it's promoting this thing and it doesn't seem quite right, and it has like a bunch of different people on it, or, like a name, and then you search that name and there's actually a bigger account under that name that seems way more legit than whatever you're looking at was not the original source. So go back to the original source. If you hear like rumors or whatnot, try to hear it from or find both sides of the argument, both people's perspectives, and listen to both so that you truly understand what is going on. And I know this is a lot of work and you don't have to fact check every single thing on the internet. The most important things to fact check is anything that you're gonna further share. And so anything that you're gonna like retweet or provide your own perspective on, just make sure you're doing your own research so you're not spreading more misinformation. And it's important to like check multiple news sources, even for big news events. You can eventually get a few sources that you really trust. They're consistently good. They consistently give you quality information, and then you can rely on them some more. But you should also like, if something seems very politically charged, or it seems like the article is wanting you to believe one thing, it's not very impartial, then, go ahead and find what the opposite side of news is saying and see how are these different, because usually if they're vastly different, the truth is somewhere in between. But it's important that you research everything and make your own conclusions instead of blindly relying on things, especially for anything that's important or influencing you fundamentally in the ways that you treat other people or in the ways that, you vote or anything like that. And do remember that a lot of people on the internet, they have agendas. People are trying to sell things, usually. Everybody's trying to make money, which, I respect the hustle, but it's important as a consumer to be aware that there are agendas behind a lot of things. And things can be sensationalized. Things can be, warped to fit a narrative that might not be true. And so when you're going in and consuming information on the internet, this is just stuff that you have to be aware of. I know I saw like a TikTok video, I think it was on Instagram Reels though, of orca whales attacking people, or like an orca whale killing a trainer or whatever. So I just really quickly Googled that and I instantly found out that it was fake news. So that is the easiest way to just check really quick. Oh, this isn't true. And then if it's something more important, do that due diligence and research. Now, I want to highlight an underrepresented source that is actually really, really great for information and a lot of people overlook. I think partially because of what we are told at school of like, I'm not even saying what it is. Let me reveal what it is. It's Wikipedia. Wikipedia is awesome, in my opinion. And I think in school you're told not to use Wikipedia as a source because it's really a wonderful aggregate of information from a lot of different people, a lot of people who know what they're talking about. In Wikipedia, people have to link where they're getting information. People are constantly reviewing it, editing it. It's a nice conglomerate of human knowledge. And what's also great about Wikipedia is that it tells you the source. If you scroll down, there's a bunch of different sources on where the information is coming from. They're usually very reputable. They are journals, news articles, and whatnot. Now, I do want to say one thing. You might be like, medical journals, scientific journals, those always have to be true, right? Not necessarily. And I know, you're like, if I can't trust like science, the facts, what can I trust? And what you can trust is, you can trust experiments that have been repeated. So if you find, this is especially true with psychology usually, is people will do an experiment and come to a result. And then when someone tries to repeat the experiment, they don't get the same result. So if you really want to dive deep into like the truth of something, try to look for experiments that have been repeated. And if there's only one experiment, maybe you go with that, maybe you don't. It's really up to you. I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do, but just to be aware. Next, I'm just going to touch on kind of the overhanging future of where internet literacy is headed, and that is AI. You can use AI. AI is a very useful tool. It will give you outputs. But when you're on the internet and looking at videos, sound bites, art, you kind of have to assume it's AI unless proven otherwise. I can promise you, I am a real person. You can hear me breathing weird, probably, and messing up sometimes. That's a good sign that I am a human. Flaws are inherently human things. Unnatural flaws are AI things. And things that are just straight up unbelievable. If you see like an alligator taking a child, or a bear crashing into a bathroom, or a baby that was just born running down the hallway of the hospital, those are all AI. These are all examples of AI videos that I have seen recently. And they look very real, which is very scary. But ultimately, until we have more regulation around AI and regulation around, false information, you kind of just have to assume stuff is AI until you have undeniable proof that it's not. And it's unfortunate that that is the world we live in. So as you head about your week this week, that's kind of all I have on the basics of internet literacy. Hopefully you took something helpful out of this. And so as you're going about your week, I want you to kind of the activity for this week in a way to like really engage with this is to pause and ask yourself, why is this person saying this? Fact check a secondary source. You only have to do it like once, but if there's anything that's ringing your bells of this doesn't seem quite right, see if you can prove that it is either true or not true. And if you have any like really fun examples, you can comment them if you can on wherever you're listening to the podcast, or you can send me an email about them and maybe I'll talk about them on a future episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Live Life Love podcast. As always, please share this episode with your friends and family. Follow the podcast on Instagram at Live Life Love Pod, or visit the website livelifelovepodcast.com. You can find past episodes wherever you like to listen, and new episodes come out every Tuesday. Have a great day.